Most advertisers waste money on Google Ads audience targeting. They either overcomplicate it or they shut it off completely, and their reach gets 0 clicks. If that sounds familiar to you, you're definitely not alone, and today I'll show you the real way to think about how Google Ads audiences work in 2025. No fluff, just what actually works. So I'm Kayla from Pandas. We've helped e-commerce brands and service businesses get way more out of their Google Ads. And in this video, we're breaking down the audience targeting. You'll learn when to use it, when not to use it, and how to avoid traps that waste budget. By the end, you'll know exactly how to layer audience without overcomplicating your setup. So before we dive in, make sure you like the video if you want more deep dives like this, and subscribe for more content. All right, so section 1, what are audiences and why do they matter? So when we talk about audiences in Google Ads, we're talking about groups of people Google identifies based on their behaviors, their demographics, or their interests. It's Google's way of helping you reach out not just to anyone searching, but the right type of person who's more likely to buy. So the feature is pretty simple. You can choose to observe how different groups perform, or you can target only those groups. The benefit is that you learn who actually converts and you can spend smarter over time. So here's the key point. Keywords are still the primary way of targeting in Google Ads, especially in search campaigns. Basically, keywords show the intent the clearest way, and that's usually where most people start. And it's still the foundation of good targeting. But audiences are the extra layer on top of the keywords. They don't replace them, they just refine them. So if you want to go deeper into keyword targeting, we have a full video breakdown, so please go watch after this one. You'll learn all about that. So now let's move on to how audience targeting really works, starting with the difference between targeting and observations. So targeting versus observation is basically in Google Ads, you've got 2 modes. You've got the first mode, which is your target mode, and your second mode, which is your observation mode. Targeting means that your ads only show to the audience that you select. That's it. Observation mode means your ads will show broadly, but will also collect data on those audiences. So here's a mistake most people make. They switch to targeting way too early and don't get impressions, and then think Google Ads doesn't work. That's not the move. So start in observation, let your campaigns run, gather data first, and then once you have at least 20 to 30 conversions, then test targeting on proven segments. All right, on to section 2, where audiences fit in campaigns. So you want to think of Google Ads campaigns as layers of intent signals. That means with each campaign type, basically is built on a different way Google understands what people want. At the very top is the performance max, then search, then display, and then finally YouTube. So here's what it really means. Search is the strongest intent signal because people are typing keywords directly into Google. Display and YouTube have the weaker signals because people are browsing content, not really actively searching. And then Performance Max is more unique. It's down the line. It combines placements across Google, but your audience and PMax are not strictly targeted. They are more around signals, so they don't limit reach. They basically guide the algorithm on who might be a good fit. And here's something a lot of advertisers miss. Performance Max does not remarket by default. That's why it's best to feed it strong signals like past purchasers or high quality customer lists. Especially in bottom funnel campaigns, those signals help Google find new people who behave like your best buyers. So that's how audiences in PMax actually drive results. On to section 3, common pain points. So advertisers generally run into the same frustrations again and again. You'll get 0 impressions when switching to targeting, the audience list is too small to activate, or you'll have overlapping campaigns that compete with each other. And the big one, does targeting even work, or is Google just ignoring me? All of these problems point to one truth. The content and the structure of your ads do the targeting. Audiences only help Google sort signals faster. So in section 4, we're going to discuss how to use audiences by campaign type. So search campaigns. You'll want to start with observation mode and watch how audiences perform before making any targeting decisions. You want to use exclusions to cut out poor fit groups and layer audiences if you want to filter for higher quality, but only after you have the data. Keywords remain the foundation here, and then audience refine, but they don't replace. Now on to Performance Max or PMax campaigns. Audiences really act only as signals, not hard targets. PMax does not remarket by default, and that means you have to feed it really strong first-party data like past purchasers, converters, or email lists. This tells Google who your best customers are so it can find more people like them. Now on to display campaigns. So here audiences are the main driver. Keywords are weak intent signals in display. You want to use in-market, affinity, or custom segments to reach relevant people. And always, always, always test exclusions to protect your budget from being wasted on impressions. So the last one is YouTube campaigns. Audiences are super critical here. You're not catching active searches, you're catching people by demographics, interests, and behaviors. Custom segments based on search terms or remarketing lists from your site and YouTube channel usually perform the best. So on to section 5, why this even matters. All right, so each campaign type uses audiences differently. In search, audiences sharpen your keyword targeting. In Performance Max, audiences are intent signals, so they guide the algorithm, but don't limit reach. In display and YouTube, audiences carry the weight because intent from keywords is weak or missing. So that's why the role of the audiences isn't the same everywhere. You have to know where they are just an extra layer and where they are the main driver. And in section 6, this is our angle. So here's where we see advertisers go wrong a lot. They chase every toggle inside Google Ads and they get lost in audience menus and forget the bigger strategy. At Profit Pandas, our approach is pretty simple. Keywords are always the foundation. Audiences are layers on top, starting in observation, feeding first-party data, and then moving into strict targeting only when the data proves it works. We use audiences to guide Google with better signals, not box it in. So that way, campaigns scale without losing efficiency. The point isn't to just use every feature. The point is to use audiences where they add value, sharpening intent, teaching the algorithm, and protecting your budget. So that's the difference between guessing and running a system that actually grows. So the takeaway is pretty simple. Audiences aren't magic. They won't save a weak campaign, but when you layer them correctly, they make Google Ads smarter, faster, and more profitable. So I'm Kayla from Profit Pandas, and if you found this useful, please subscribe to the channel. Then go watch our Smarter Google Ads 2025 series, and don't miss our in-depth videos on keyword research and targeting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.